Was I wrong for completely detonating my mother's life, the only parent I had ever known, the moment the lab technician casually mentioned a discrepancy in my DNA profile, forcing a conversation that exposed 2 decades of agonizing, calculated lies? Seriously, I need to know if you would have chosen the comforting lie or the brutal truth when you discovered that the man you mourned for 25 years, the hero who supposedly died in fire was actually alive, well, and living a completely different life with a new family just 2 states over. This is a story about the corrosive power of a deeply embedded secret, a random medical test that cracked my entire world open, and the cold reality that the tragedy I based my entire identity on was nothing but an elaborate, cruel fiction designed to erase my real father. The ultimate confrontation that followed didn't just expose my mother as a liar. It revealed a decades-old crime of passion, identity fraud, and a love triangle that had claimed an entirely innocent life. Tell me if you would have done the same thing, because the immediate, life-altering fallout that ensued forced me to redefine every single memory I had and plunged my mother into the consequence she deserved. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the world defined by absence. My name is Julian. I'm 35 years old, and for the vast majority of my life, I was defined by being the son of a tragic hero. My mother, Clara, always told me the same story. My father, Michael, was a brave, kind man, a volunteer firefighter who died saving others in a massive warehouse fire when I was only 10 years old. Clara never remarried. She raised me alone, keeping his memory alive with photos, medals, and endless, heartbreaking stories of his heroism. His death was the defining tragedy of our lives, the source of our bond, and the reason I grew up with an intense sense of responsibility and reverence for his memory. I had a picture of him on my desk every day, a smiling man in a crisp uniform. I used to visit his memorial stone every year, placing flowers there on the anniversary of the fire. I idolized him. I even chose a career in structural engineering, a subtle way to honor the man who supposedly died trying to preserve a building and save the people inside. Our life was humble but happy. Clara worked as a local accountant, quiet and deeply private. She never talked about her life before my father, Michael, which I understood. The pain was too deep. She always maintained she was the only family we need, subtly discouraging me from connecting too deeply with my paternal relatives, whom she claimed were too painful a reminder. She claimed his family had moved far away and didn't want the memories stirred up. I respected her grief, and we were a unit, bound by the memory of the man we lost. This comforting, stable reality held until 4 months ago, when a single, mandatory medical test shattered the foundation of my existence. The catalyst was my cousin's daughter, a distant relative on my supposed father Michael's side. She desperately needed a kidney donor match, and since my blood type was rare, I offered to get screened for compatibility. The procedure required an extensive DNA and blood type profile for compatibility screening, which is standard when dealing with potential familial donations. I went in, gave the sample, went through the standard paperwork, and thought nothing of it, proud to possibly help my family. A few days later, I received a confusing call from the lab supervisor, Dr. Hayes. He wasn't calling about the match. He was calling about the profile itself. He sounded guarded, professional, but deeply uneasy. Dr. Hayes explained that routine kinship markers were run on all familial donor DNA to establish biological relationships, especially in cases where a close match is sought. He said they had run my profile against my cousin's aunt's, my supposed paternal uncle's wife profile, and the results were an ***, absolute mismatch, asterisk asterisk. There was no biological connection asterisk whatsoever asterisk between me and anyone on my father Michael's side of the family. The DNA report showed I was completely unrelated to the lineage I thought was mine. I tried to argue. Maybe it was a contamination, maybe the records were mixed up, maybe I was adopted, though Clara never mentioned it. I pressed him, stating emphatically that my father died when I was 10. Dr. Hayes gently assured me the test was precise, rechecking the birth dates and names supplied by my cousin's side, and he confirmed with certainty that the most likely explanation was that Michael Sterling was asterisk asterisk, not my father asterisk asterisk, biologically or legally, if any records existed. The genetic markers simply weren't there. The conversation ended with him urging me, for my own peace of mind, to seek immediate clarification from my mother. I walked out of that lab feeling dizzy, grasping for the adoption story, but the idea felt hollow. Why would Clara hide such a massive detail? Why would she let me believe in this tragic hero? I drove home, a cold, hard stone of certainty forming in my stomach. I needed to look at the death certificate, the insurance papers, the official records. I needed proof that my life hadn't been an elaborate lie. When I finally confronted my mother, Clara, in our quiet, familiar living room that night, holding the lab results, she didn't deny the DNA. She just looked incredibly weary, the mask of the stoic widow cracking, the facade of 25 years instantly shattered, revealing raw desperation underneath. Michael wasn't your biological father, Julian, she whispered, confirming my deepest fear, but he loved you. She then launched into a practiced, emotional explanation. My biological father, an impulsive, unstable man named Thomas, was someone she'd had a brief, messy relationship with before settling down with Michael. Thomas had walked out before I was born, and Michael, who she claimed adored me, had stepped up, adopting me legally when I was an infant. The adoption, she said, was sealed and complete, and she kept it secret to protect me from the stigma and pain. I was angry, but I could live with that. Michael was still my father in every way that mattered. But then I noticed a tremor in her hands, a lack of conviction in her eyes that contradicted the tearful story. I asked the question that plunged us into absolute darkness, pressing the weak spot in her narrative. Asterisk asterisk. If Michael adopted me, where are his original adoption papers? Where is the social worker's file? Why were they sealed? Surely you kept the paperwork that proves Michael's legal claim to me. Asterisk asterisk. Clara's eyes darted away. The denial was instant, followed by a torrent of excuses about lost papers, a flood in the basement, the fire destroying all records, anything but the truth. Her frantic, illogical defense was all the confirmation I needed. The DNA test didn't just prove Michael wasn't my biological father. It proved Clara was lying about the adoption too. There were no sealed papers. I realized my official documents, which bore the name Michael Sterling, must have been altered or fraudulent. Why go to such lengths? I pressed her, hard. Mom, if he didn't adopt me, why are my official documents, my birth certificate, my school enrollment, all in the name of Michael's family? You had to have tampered with records. You needed his name to disappear. You couldn't have just changed my name. You needed proof of his death to clean the records. Did he actually die in that fire? The color drained from her face, leaving her ghost, white, a cold sweat breaking out on her forehead. The silence stretched, thick and toxic, filled with the weight of decades of deceit. She finally collapsed against the sofa cushions, tears streaming, letting out a heart-wrenching wail as she confessed to a lie so profound it sickened me. Michael had not died in the fire The fire was real. It was a devastating warehouse fire in 2000 that tragically claimed the life of a single, unidentified victim. Michael, my father, was not a volunteer firefighter. He was an unhappy employee at the warehouse. He had walked out on Clara shortly after I turned 10, tired of the strained relationship, the emotional manipulation, and the secret of my parentage. Clara, realizing she would be left with no name, no substantial assets, and no stable social standing, saw an opportunity in the public tragedy. She fabricated his death, using the one unidentified body found in the ruins, which was badly burned. With her background in accounting and a few well-laced bribes, she meticulously forged official documents, a death certificate, insurance claims, and even the missing person reports, to declare Michael legally deceased. Why? Insurance fraud. She collected the life insurance payout, which was substantial, $250,000, enough to raise me comfortably, send me to college, and keep up the facade. She used the official death certificate to completely erase Michael Sterling from the world, giving herself a clean slate and a hefty payout. The rage and devastation I felt was tectonic. It wasn't just that he wasn't my father, or even that he was alive. It was the malicious, calculated destruction of his identity. My entire life, the sympathy I received, the hero worship, the medals she kept which she had bought online, she confessed, the memorial stone I visited every year, was built on a grotesque financial fraud and a lie. My supposed father wasn't a hero. He was a missing person who was declared dead by the woman who was supposed to be his wife. I realized the photos of him I cherished weren't memorials. They were wanted posters, a fact I would soon act on. My mother had committed a crime, destroyed a man's identity, and built our life on his fraudulent death. The chilling realization was that she had orchestrated the perfect disappearing act, not to save me, but to save herself from poverty and social shame, and she had stolen an enormous sum of money. So that's the horrific choice I faced: protect my lying, criminal mother, who raised me with money stolen from a life insurance scam and identity fraud, or seek the truth about the man whose life she had stolen, knowing that doing so would result in the police knocking on our door. Before I tell you the cold, calculated decision I made, the choice that brought the police, my real father, and a devastating legal case crashing down, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have prioritized family loyalty and secrecy, letting the sleeping fraud lie to keep your mother out of prison? Or would you have sought justice for the man whose life and identity were fraudulently stolen, accepting the total destruction of your family unit? I chose justice. Michael Sterling deserved to know his life had been erased, and the lie was too massive to carry. I also realized that my mother's frantic, secretive actions meant she had taken extreme steps to ensure Michael could never resurface and challenge her narrative, likely telling him to disappear or threatening him if he ever contacted me. She wasn't just a grieving widow. She was a criminal who actively destroyed his past. The first thing I did was gather every scrap of information I could: Michael's old social security number, photos, and any financial trails from his employment before the fire. I did not go to the police yet. I went to a specialized private investigator, telling them I was looking for a long-lost friend whose identity had been stolen, and that the friend had been declared deceased years ago. I paid for the search with the entirety of my savings, knowing the truth was far more valuable than the money. The PI found Michael in less than 2 weeks. He hadn't vanished completely. He had simply gone 2 states over, changed his first name to Mark and quietly started a new life as a successful carpenter. He was married to a kind woman and was raising 2 teenage kids who believed he was Mark Vance. He looked happy, peaceful, and utterly unaware that in his old life he was a famous dead hero. The PI provided me with a contact number, a current address, and a confirmation. The man I mourned was alive. My heart pounded with a mix of exhilarating relief and searing anger on his behalf. I looked at the picture of his new family, and the betrayal was instantly compounded. My mother's crime hadn't just affected us. It had affected Michael's entire new life forcing him into a permanent state of identity deception. I called him Michael, now Mark. I didn't introduce myself as Julian Sterling. I simply said, "This is about the warehouse fire in 2000. This is about Michael Sterling." There was a long, painful silence, followed by a heavy, broken sigh. "Who is this?" he asked, his voice low and wary. I told him my name and everything, that I was his son, that my mother told me he died a hero, and that I had the DNA proof that I wasn't biologically his, but that I needed to see him. The subsequent 2-hour conversation was agonizing. Michael confirmed everything. He had walked out, yes, but he had explicitly told Clara he would send money and return for me eventually once he found stable work. He had faked his death. He had tried to contact Clara shortly after the fire, only to be met with threats of exposure and legal action, confirming he should never try to contact me, but he believed she was just a heartbroken widow. He was stunned, then horrified, to learn she had declared him legally dead and collected the insurance. He was living under a cloud of identity deception simply to protect himself from his unstable ex. The realization that he was technically a dead man, living a fraudulent life just to survive, was overwhelming. I flew out the next day. Meeting Michael/Mark was surreal. He didn't look like a dead man. He looked like a weary, kind father who had been forced into hiding. We talked for hours. I presented him with the full evidence, the official death certificate Clara had forged, the insurance payout details, and Clara's recent confession to me. We sat together, 2 victims of Clara's elaborate fiction. He finally broke, realizing the depth of her malicious act. This was the moment I stopped protecting Clara. Michael and I agreed. Clara had to pay, not just for the fraud, but for stealing our lives, his identity, and forcing him to live in fear. We returned to my hometown, and together, we went straight to the police and the insurance company. The evidence was overwhelming. Michael Sterling, the dead man, was standing right there. Clara's entire, carefully constructed world imploded in less than 48 hours. She was arrested for insurance fraud, forgery, identity theft, and obstruction of justice ***. The legal case was brutal, public, and swift. She tried to plead that she did it for me, but the court saw only the cold, calculated malice and the enormous financial gain. The fact that the crime was prolonged over 2 decades, affecting Michael's ability to live a normal life, sealed her fate. She received a significant prison sentence and was ordered to pay back the insurance money with interest, ruining her financially forever. The consequences were total. My entire childhood foundation was wiped out. I lost my mother to prison, and I lost the hero I thought was my father. However, I gained my real biological father, Thomas, whom I eventually met and established a separate, healthy relationship with. More importantly, I also gained back Michael who, while not biologically related, became a stable, genuine paternal figure once again, helping me process the 2 decades of lies. He was able to legally reclaim his identity, and his new family embraced me as his long-lost son. The memorial stone was eventually removed. I look at Michael now, officially Michael again, and I know I did the right thing. The truth, however painful, was the only way to free all of us from the oppressive weight of her monumental lie. So, tell me, was I wrong to sacrifice my family's stability and my mother's freedom for the sake of the absolute, unsparing truth? Was justice for the man whose life was stolen worth the cost of sending my own mother to prison, knowing that the foundation of my existence was built on her crime? Let me know your final, honest thoughts in the comments below. Like this video if you believe in the necessity of truth. Subscribe to the channel for more shocking, true stories of identity and hidden crimes, and share your final thoughts on this whole unbelievable mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.